April 1960, Toronto's Maple Leaf Gardens. The Stanley Cup Finals between the Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. Maurice "the Rocket" Richard scores his last of more than 500 goals en route to his final triumph.
The bell goes, the game is over, and the Montreal Canadiens have won the Stanley Cup 4-0.
Richard leads his team to an unprecedented 5 consecutive Stanley Cups, a feat never before accomplished and never matched since.
They were overmatched.
The game's iconic figure retires at the summit. He has set every goal-scoring record, won 8 Stanley Cups, and captured the heart and soul of a nation. Now Richard's departure from the game will create a power vacuum that ignites a decade-long struggle for hockey supremacy. It is a tale of 2 cities as Toronto and Montreal collide in a clash of culture and a war on ice. Across the country, baby boomers embrace the game in record numbers. A rebel generation of women fight to pull their game back from the brink of extinction. The 1960s are a decade of optimism and excitement. And for many Canadians, the golden age of hockey. In the early 1960s, Montreal is bursting with confidence. It is Canada's metropolis and its financial engine. In the downtown, Place Ville-Marie is rising up, boasting the tallest skyscraper in the country. And to cap it all, Montrealers are preparing to welcome the world to Expo 67. CBC Television's Norman DePoe declares it the city of the future.
Montreal is still our largest city. Some would say our only real city when you think of all the word means. Toronto, he'll say, has finally caught up with the 20th century, but Montreal is already marching into the 21st.
It's a vibrant city, proud of its nightlife and its style. And nothing embodies that panache better than the Montreal Canadiens. They are the most exciting hockey team in the world, worshipped by those who have revered hockey for generations, like the family of Eric Lalonde.
The Canadiens have always reflected and have been attached to the people, not only of Montreal, but of the whole province. It's the French culture and the dynamic trends that we see in our team, being fast, being impulsive, being exciting.
Hockey is a religion here, and the Montreal Forum is the game's high temple. It has its rituals. Many fans and players get their haircut at Menik Perazino's barbershop.
When you go to the Forum, it's an outing no less than going to the theater. The AB fan is proud. He gets dressed up. He comes in to get his hair done. The style is combed with a part, smoothed down, like Maurice Richard.
But there is a challenger in the hockey kingdom, just down the road on the new McDonald-Cartier freeway. By comparison, Toronto is a quiet and conservative place. Parts of the city are still dry. Even Maple Leaf Gardens prohibits the sale of beer at hockey games.
Toronto was seen as Toronto the Good, the city with its shirt collar buttoned all the way up to the top on the hottest day of summer, where, you know, fun was elsewhere.
The contrasts couldn't be clearer. But the Globe and Mail declares Toronto, like its hockey team, has designs on Montreal's throne.
Ever since the handsome skyscraper developments were completed in proud Montreal, Toronto has been grinding its teeth, flashing its green eyes, and wondering how to do the Quebec metropolis one better.
Toronto is planning its own skyscraper, the TD Centre, taller even than Place Ville-Marie, a symbol of its ambitions to outdo Montreal. Toronto fans are as passionate as the Montreal crowd. When he moves to Toronto, Leroy Peach makes his first priority buying season tickets to Maple Leaf Gardens.
I don't care what they say in Montreal. The most quintessential team in Canada is the Leafs. It's not just Toronto who owns the Maple Leafs. The whole nation owns the Toronto Maple Leafs.
For decades, Major Conn Smythe, the man who built the Maple Leafs, has called them Canada's team. On their chests, they wear the nation's symbol, but Montreal carries its name. And both see hockey as a fight for national bragging rights.
History is such an important part of what makes a rivalry. And, you know, so the cities are, you know, have had history with each other, the teams have had history against each other, and this goes back for a lot of years.
The battle between Montreal and Toronto has raged for generations. Toronto has been struggling to regain its form for more than 10 years. The last time the Leafs won the Cup was 1951. The hero of that game was dashing Bill Barilko, a fine young defenseman who brought his crushing body checks and Hollywood smile to the blue and white. Barilko had scored the winner in overtime to beat the hated Montreal Canadiens. The Leafs were elated. None of them could have known that victory would mark the beginning of a decade-long decline. That summer, Barilko had flown up north in a friend's private plane to go fishing. They vanished without a trace. The largest search and rescue mission in Canadian history finds nothing.
And then time passes. He isn't found. And now it becomes a kind of curse. The ghost of Barilko is waiting to be found and, you know, waiting to be liberated.
When the following season opens, his sweater is hung in the Maple Leafs dressing room. But for the next 11 seasons, there will be no Barilko, no Stanley Cups. The player who takes his place in the lineup is a tough 22-year-old from Northern Ontario named Tim Horton. Half of Toronto's team comes from Canadian Shield mining towns. Players that fit Conn Smythe's motto, if you can't beat him in the alley, you can't beat him on the ice. Captain George Armstrong from Falconbridge. Dave Keon from Rouen-Noranda. Frank Mahavlich from Schumacher, and Tim Horton.
I was born in Cochrane, Ontario on January the 12th, 1930, and played most of my minor hockey in Cochrane.
Horton's childhood was tough. He remembers neighbors leaving charity food baskets on the doorstep. Hockey was his ticket out.
It sounds like you're fighting your way to Hell's Kitchen or something, you know, like the boxers, but I think it is true. I mean, let's face it, if he didn't, if he didn't play hockey, he might have been back in the mines. There's no doubt about that.
When Horton is brought up by the Leafs, there's no going back. He's made it to the big time, and he's a star.
Tim Horton had a certain mythology about him. And what we knew as a kid was that he was this incredibly strong guy. I mean, that you know, boy, if you go into the corners with Tim Horton, no chance. He was the mild-mannered guy who off ice wore horn-rimmed glasses. And we never imagined hockey players, you know, wearing glasses. And, you know, this was Clark Kent and Superman.
But hockey players, even supermen, aren't paid much. And Horton is still haunted by the specter of poverty. So when the hockey season's over, Horton works in boss Conn Smythe's gravel pit. He's escaped the mines only to find himself toiling in the quarries. Hoping to build financial security, he tries to start his own business. First, a car dealership, and then a string of hamburger stands. All fail. But on the ice, Horton's luck and the Leafs is finally beginning to turn. In 1962, Toronto muscles past Montreal and makes it to the finals. They beat Chicago, and the Stanley Cup is once again paraded down Bay Street. "50,000 fans jam the downtown streets. In the words of one local politician, even the Queen never had a crowd like this. Then, a news bulletin from the north interrupts Toronto's summer-long celebration.
The remains of the former Toronto Maple Leaf hockey star Bill Barilko have been found in the northern Ontario wilderness.
The mystery is solved. The ghost laid to rest. For Toronto faithful, it's as though a curse has been lifted. After more than a decade lost in the wilderness, the Maple Leafs are back in fighting form. In the 1960s, Canada is hockey crazed, swept up in the game's greatest rivalry. Every boy wants a Canadiens or Leafs sweater. Even the latest craze, tabletop hockey, features, of course, Montreal versus Toronto, so kids can play out the rivalry in miniature in their basements and rec rooms. By now, 90% of Canadian households also have a new fixture in the living room, and the nation has begun a love affair with Hockey Night in Canada.
Again, from coast to coast.
Now we can see these guys play. And if you're a kid, you can go out and emulate them on your pond rink or on the street or whatever. They've entered popular consciousness through the magic of television.
Canadians who have never even been to Toronto or Montreal are swept along in their rivalry. Teenager Frank Pacci has no trouble picking his favorite team. For Frank and other Italian Canadians from Sault Ste. Marie, there is only one team.
I was a Canadiens fan from the very beginning. The Italian kids identified with the French Canadians because they too were a minority in Canada. They too had something to prove to the rest of the country.
For Frank, and for many boys like him, hockey becomes the instant bridge to the culture of their adopted country.
For us immigrant kids, hockey is the game we all want to excel at because it's the Canadian game. It made us different from our parents. That made us feel that we belonged in the new country.
This is the height of the baby boom, and cities are expanding everywhere. The Patsku family home is a new bungalow in Toronto's sprawling suburbs. Theirs is a hockey-mad household.
If it was bad weather, we'd play downstairs. If we weren't skating, we would be playing on the driveway. I can remember my dad always getting upset with us. He'd say, "Look at the door, guys," and it would be dented.
Bill Patsku and his brothers live and breathe hockey year-round. Just beyond their backyard fence is a kid's paradise, 2 outdoor rinks.
We're there all day. Our toes get frozen, but we don't care. We won't come home till dark.
Alex Patsku works at 2 jobs so his family can live the Canadian dream. Still, he finds time to enroll his 3 boys in minor hockey leagues. He buys them equipment, drives them to the games, and lovingly records their every move on the ice. He is among thousands of others across the country, Canada's first hockey dads, joining the 1960s hockey boom. For the Patsku boys, league games are the highlight of the week.
We had no trouble getting up. I wanted to be there first because I wanted to be the first guy out on the ice, and I also wanted to be the last guy off the ice.
I think the golden era is always the era when you were a kid. Players are skating 100 miles an hour. The puck is being shot 1,000 miles an hour. Everybody is 10 feet tall. And so, you get older, you grow up, but your memory and frozen in time are all of those images and impressions of when you were a kid.
Every Canadian boy skating on an outdoor rink shares the same fantasy: to be like their hockey heroes, maybe even to win a Stanley Cup.
Well, I like to follow. I play defense myself, and I like to watch all the defensemen. I like to watch Tim Horton for Toronto. And
this kid will live the fantasy. It was obvious from the moment he learned to skate that Bobby Orr was something special. He's a prodigy almost before he's a teenager, and he's growing up in the Maple Leafs' backyard.
Bobby Orr came out of Parry Sound and was discovered at age 13 playing in a bantam tournament in Gananoque. And no one knew he existed in the larger hockey world or knew what he was. And a bunch of guys from the Boston Bruins happened to be at the game, and they see this kid come out and they say, "Holy smokes, who's he?"
For Leaf fans, he will always be the one who got away. The Boston Bruins sign him at age 14. Boston sends Bobby Orr to a junior team in Oshawa, just east of Toronto. 4 years later, he's playing defense for the Bruins in the NHL at the tender age of 18.
Or reimagined the position, he reimagined the game, or he imagined it originally, skating around out on Georgian Bay or on the Seguin River or wherever he first figured it out. Bobby Orr didn't skate around any pylons. He skated on ice where there were no borders. You just skate to the horizon. And somewhere in doing that, he didn't see his own limitations. He didn't see the limitations in the position. He didn't see the limitations in the game. Why not? You're a defenseman, why not carry the puck? Why not just keep going?
His style of play is revolutionary. A superb defenseman who can win the scoring title. And Bobby Orr gives hockey one of its most enduring images. The early 1960s belonged to the Toronto Maple Leafs. The victory in 1962 launches the first of 3 consecutive Stanley Cup parades through downtown. And Toronto's glory is Montreal's shame. The Canadians and their fans are in a funk. Menik Perazino's barbershop is no longer a happy place.
I would hear people say, "I can't sleep when we were beaten by Toronto." People would go home crying. It was that important to them.
Montreal coach Toe Blake is desperate to break the slump. He's looking for scapegoats, and Canadiens goalie Jacques Plante is the first casualty. In 1959, Plante had made hockey history during a game in Madison Square Garden. Over the years, pucks had fractured his skull, broken his cheekbones, nose, and jaw. On this night, he'd just taken another 13 stitches in a face that already carried the scars of 200 others. He'd had enough. When he came back on the ice, he was wearing a mask. He would never play another game without it.
Everyone who plays goal, from now until the end of time, owes something to Jacques Plante. The very least they're going to owe is maybe a broken nose or a teeth. They might well owe their life. Some players are going to owe their life to Jacques Plante. You know what else it did? The mask changed the architecture of the position. Now you could get lower.
Plante had simply adapted to the new realities of hockey, with bigger, stronger players. The game is faster and a lot more dangerous. The curved stick is all the rage, and in the right hands, it's a devastating weapon. Bobby Hull's slap shot is clocked at 100 miles an hour, hard enough to shatter arena glass. Plante had every reason to cover up, but Canadiens coach Toe Blake doesn't see it that way. He believes it's a sign that Plante has lost his nerve. He trades him to New York in exchange for barefaced Gump Worsley. Even the Canadiens' big captain is under suspicion. Jean Beliveau had been in the spotlight since the early 1950s, when he became a star with the Quebec Aces. He was so popular in Quebec City that they built the Colisée just to accommodate the crowds that came to see him play. By 1961, he wears the captain's C on a Montreal Canadiens jersey. It is both an honor and a burden.
We represent all of French Canada, and we know a lot of people are counting on us. And we are very conscious of the tradition we must keep up. There were some very good men here before us.
Beliveau is cursed by his own talent, so smooth it sometimes appears he's not even trying. And when Montreal is in a slump, the sports writers are quick to point fingers. Belivau's old medical checkup is splashed across the sports pages. It's revealed that Big Jean's heart is too small for his body.
The rap on Beliveau, as I remember it, was that he had a Volkswagen engine and a Cadillac body. And part of that was he didn't play with the obvious passion of Maurice Richard.
Still, Beliveau is the team's top scorer and one of its most physical players. And slowly, he begins to lead the Canadiens out of their slump. Now Montreal adds a little muscle to beat the Maple Leafs at their own game.
And the next thing you knew, John Ferguson was out there fighting with everyone on the Toronto Maple Leafs team, saying, you remember the free skating era, the flying Frenchmen and the nice guys? That era is over.
In the mid-1960s, Montreal and Toronto play each other 14 times each season. And for players like Terry Harper, every game is war.
These are the games. Oh boy, one half of the country against the other. Everybody watching. I can't describe the feeling. You feel like you've spent your whole life preparing for this night.
Well, they used to hate each other. They used to hate each other. You see some of the guys, even today, they have a tough time to communicate with some of the players that they played against. It must have been war at the time, I would have been very surprised to see two guys from different teams to go and have a beer after the game together. Forget it.
In the spring of 1965, the Canadiens, led by Jean Beliveau, make it back to the top.
When we took the ice, the foreign fans were cup-starved and showed their desire to end our 4-year drought with a huge ovation that pumped us from the first drop of the puck. Shortly after 10 p.m. that night, I hoisted my first Stanley Cup as captain of the Canadiens.
For Béliveau, that 1965 victory, followed by another in 1966, is sweet vindication. For Montreal, it's merely an appetizer. The city is buzzing with activity, getting ready for the big party, Expo 67. Canadiens coach Toe Blake is caught up in the mood.
Your worship, especially for you in the opening of your expo, we'll win the cup again in 1967.
A boast made in a moment of hubris that Toe Blake and the Montreal Canadiens will come to regret. In the early 1960s, television bombards viewers with images of the perfect woman.
Wow!
Wife, mother, and homemaker.
Lorient, your home is nicer to be in.
Since the Second World War, women have been squeezed out of public life, kept out of professions and politics, and still a rarity on university campuses. But all of that is about to change. The 60s will be a breakout decade for women as tradition gives way to a new world of opportunity.
Women can start entering university. They can start dreaming of careers that they couldn't have before. They can start maybe thinking of being an athlete then.
Cookie Cartwright is one of the new breed. She's the only woman in her class at Queen's University's law school. And she loves sports. Cookie starts a campaign to revive the university women's hockey team. It has a history dating back to 1894, but the team has been extinct for 10 years. And Cookie finds the university administration would just as soon keep it that way.
Everybody thought hockey was too rough. It was kind of an oddball sport for women to play. For loners, the sort of people who thought independently and didn't follow the crowd, and didn't care what other people said about you.
It's not just a matter of gender, it's also about money.
Football was king. The total budget for athletics for women was the same figure as the cleaning bill for the men's football team.
Cookie and her teammates have to scrounge for equipment. In an old storage room under the stands, they find a stash of musty pads and 30-year-old helmets. When they can't afford the real thing, they grind the picks off the blades and play on figure skates. But there's nothing second-rate about their game. In 1963, Cookie Cartwright leads Queens to the Women's University Hockey Championship. It's just one sign that women's hockey across the country is making a comeback.
In the 60s, it was not just, okay, now women could work, could vote, let's play hockey. It was just a matter of like, could we now take the place in hockey that we always wanted?
Joey Bush was just 13 when she started playing on the Shellettes, a team sponsored by a Don Mills gas station owner. By the time she's 16, she's a veteran on a squad that prides itself in playing a tough, intimidating game. The kind of hockey that demands a name and a logo with the right attitude. The Shellettes become the Don Mills Satan's Angels, outlaws on ice and the best team in Toronto.
There was a lot of hitting because we had body checking. We weren't angels when we were on the ice.
The Satan's Angels aren't the only Mavericks in women's hockey. The Montreal Cougars are a team of all-stars, the best in the city. By day, they're teachers, nurses, and office workers. But by night, in the Paul Sauvé Arena, they're a rough and punishing hockey team.
Trouvez-vous que c'est dur jouer au hockey?
Non.
When the Cougars and the Satan's Angels play each other, it's merciless. And for Joey Bush, every time they face off, their games have all the passion and fire of Canada's great rivalry.
We hated to lose to them. I don't think it was any different than Leafs versus Canadians. We were all Maple Leaf fans, and they were all Canadiens fans. It was like we were out there playing for the Stanley Cup.
For the Montreal Cougars, the feeling is mutual. This Montreal-Toronto rivalry will rage for more than a decade. By 1967, there are enough teams and leagues to hold the first Ladies North American Hockey Championship, known affectionately as the Lipstick Tournament. Everybody's here, including Cookie Cartwright, now graduated from Queen's and practicing law. She is the leading scorer for the Humberside Dairy Queens, one of the strongest teams in the tournament. For years, mainstream sports media have shown little interest in women's hockey. But at the Lipstick Tournament, the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast crew laces up for a game against the women.
Lord, I'm afraid we took it on the chin down there, and from a girls' team of all things. They were both perturbed by the result of the play, but it looks like they kissed and made up. I fell down there, and look at you, missed that check, and there's another goal.
Not the kind of coverage hockey players like Cookie Cartwright were looking for.
They all thought it was a big lark. I don't think we expected anything more than that from them, really.
Cookie Cartwright has more serious concerns. In the tournament's championship game, her Dairy Queens take on the powerhouse Don Mills Satan's Angels. Cookie scores the dramatic winning goal and is named the tournament's most outstanding player. In women's hockey, this is the equivalent of winning the Stanley Cup. And that night, the Humberside Dairy Queens party in accordance. There would be many more victory parties after 1967's humble beginnings. Every year since, there has been a national women's hockey tournament.
30 seconds.
We're going live.
Today, girls and women from all over the world come to Canada to compete in the largest female hockey tournament on the planet.
3, 2,
The sports media gives it full coverage. But this time, it's no joke. The arena is packed with fans and talent scouts, watching for the next generation of hockey stars. (1967). Canada celebrates its 100th birthday. The federal government creates a special fund for centennial projects, and cities and towns get to choose their own gift. In true Canadian fashion, the most popular project is, what else? A new hockey arena. Hundreds are built in every shape and size all over the country. One of them is in Three Hills, Alberta. Population, 1,600.
We're rural here. I could pretty much tell you everybody who lives in town, where they live, and what the name of their dog is.
Bruce Somerville plays on the local team, the Three Hills Wheat Kings. Sometimes it's not much fun.
I play a lot of hockey all the time, all outdoors, in the freezing cold. Because we don't have a proper rink, some of the bigger towns won't come to play us outdoors.
Three Hills needs a hockey arena, a place to bring the game in from the cold and put it on decent ice. An arena will put Three Hills on the map. The federal grant covers only part of the cost. To make the dream come true, the whole town has to pitch in with labor and materials. It's a long, hard job. The arena floor takes 1,200 wheelbarrow loads of cement, each one mixed and poured by hand.
It wasn't the levelest floor when they got it done, but it's a palace to us.
Like so many others, the Three Hills Arena becomes much more than just a hockey rink. It's the hub of the community's life, home to everything from hockey to high school proms.
We value this not as a structure. We value it as a place where we come together as community. Sports connects, whether it's a backyard rink, connects you with the people you love. A little town arena connects me with my neighbors, with my children. It's connective tissue. It connects us all. And that's one of the enduring wonders of sport.
The community arena is one of the country's great centennial legacies. But the biggest centennial celebration of all is Expo 67. That spring, Montreal opens its doors, welcoming 50 million visitors to the World's Fair. But to hockey fans, an even greater spectacle is in the works.
Crown this centennial year is the greatest prize the country could ever imagine. The Stanley Cup will be contested between Toronto and Montreal. Canada's team versus Canada's team. That's the national birthday present.
The finals are set to begin during Expo's first week. The Montreal Canadiens are already planning for victory. The city even prepares a spot in the Quebec Pavilion to display the Stanley Cup. Toronto gets ready for the series with a more modest project. The team redesigns its classic uniform to sport a contemporary maple leaf, just like Canada's new flag. What's not new are the Leafs players, dubbed the over-the-hill gang by Canada's hockey press. Tim Horton is 37. So is Terry Sawchuk. And Johnny Bower is 42. They are definitely the underdogs. And after the Canadiens win the first game, it looks as though Toe Blake's promise is safe. But great goaltending can make miracles happen. And the Leafs' two old netminders stonewall Montreal's best.
Both their goalie, Bauer and Terry Sawchuk, beat us. I still see in my mind in one of the games when I walked in on Sawchuk, and to these days I still ask myself how he could catch that puck.
The final game is in Toronto.
And it's electrifying here in Maple Leaf Gardens at the moment.
The Maple Leafs win 3-1. Toronto erupts in celebration. And Leafs coach Punch Imlach revels in spoiling Montreal's party.
They were so sure they were going to win it, they had the Stanley Cup in the Quebec Pavilion of the Expos. And when we won, they had to take it out and put it in the Ontario one. And of course, I loved that.
The Stanley Cup is paraded down Bay Street to Toronto's new City Hall, a bold, modern building unlike anything else in staid old Toronto the Good. Tim Horton will remember the victory as the sweetest of his career, and now he has a decision to make. One of his business ventures has finally come good, and he doesn't have to keep playing.
Things are quite hectic these days trying to combine business with hockey. And if the business that I am involved in continues as it is, I may have to consider retirement before I would like to.
It's the Tim Horton Donut Emporium?
Yes, Tim Horton Donuts, Ward.
But Horton can't bring himself to retire. He plays on well past his prime and dies in a car crash one night, driving home from a game. Jean Beliveau will win the championship with the Canadiens 3 more times before he retires. But 1967 is the last time the Stanley Cup will ever be raised in Maple Leaf Gardens. It also marks a turning point for both the game and the country.
I think it was a real signpost year in all sorts of ways that got just beyond the hockey. There were a whole bunch of cycles that were ending and a whole bunch of cycles that were beginning. And to me, it was the end of the old traditional era in not just hockey, but Canada, and the beginning of a contemporary Pierre Trudeau, outward-looking Canada, and an outward-looking NHL.
The next year, the NHL expands, doubling in size, and all 6 new teams are awarded to cities in the United States. Never again will Montreal and Toronto meet in the Stanley Cup Finals. Canada's team versus Canada's team. The golden age of hockey's greatest rivalry is past. But the game is about to burst onto the international stage with a Cold War face-off between the superpowers of hockey.